Dear friends, I'm glad to meet you all on Feygin Live. It is Friday. Our time is 1 minute after 10, Kiev time. Another stream with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to see you, Olexiy. Likewise, we have about 114,000 people watching us. So, big ask, please share the links in your social media, subscribe, click that bell. If you're listening to that in English, subscribe to the privateer station. Subscribe to Alexei's and Mark channels as well. Alright, we missed one day, and there have been a lot of events during the last couple of days. Very bright, eventful days, yes. I will say first and then draw some conclusions. So, Russians could not really advance anywhere in the north of Kharkov region. They shelled some of our cities, of course, but then they could not advance any further. They actually just tried to advance a little more as intel operations, figure out where the troops are, got kicked back, and whatever remained of them left back to the Russian side, and they're holding what they have now. So they also got into motion near Rubezhne, near the big water reservoir. On the picture it's on the north. I don't know the details, but it looks like they're not looking where to advance, but they're looking for weaker spots in our defense, which is a good sign for us, but a sign is not a basis for optimism, but it's a good sign. Continue further down south to Izum. There's a curious event happening there, that direction where we are slowly creeping up on them from the left. We got as far as Dmitrievka already, and we made the enemy retreat from there. Dmitrievka is literally pretty close to Izum, just a little more and we'll be right there. Regardless, Izum group of Russians are trying to move to Barvinovka, to Bogorodichne, as if nothing is happening on their flank, and trying to move to Sidorova. If you're looking at the map, you can see those tentacles trying to spread out. And Liman group is also trying to help them, attempting to advance to Svetogorsk, get rid of some of our defenses up north in the yellow. But they're having no success, zero to no success, and trying to figure out how to cross the river also in that area, and cannot find it. Popasna group wants to still get to the road Popasna-Lysychansk. It kind of becomes funny when I say it 60 times in a row. And they managed to get almost to the road near Berestovaya. They probably consider that to be a great success, but then they got hit by Ukraine artillery and also infantry, and there was a lot of fighting to figure out who can push whom, but also just to state the obvious, if they do put their camp right by the road, there are other roads that we use to supply and have been using for a while, so it's not a strategic event. They're also trying to get to cut some of our positions on the south. It's like after we move this map, it's near 5 p.m. at yellow. Also the 5 p.m. that area where they try to advance and try to cut our troops out. Interestingly enough, this area was not in the news for a while. All of a sudden, it's in the news again, and in the Russian news that Russia is using pilots, military airplanes to strike Ukrainian positions there. That means that we actually advanced and got some of their territory. So they're trying to push back. And same movement, they're still trying to get to Kamyshevacha. So that's the most noticeable motion was from the south, Popasna group trying to get to Kamyshevacha and get to the road. But I'm not too concerned knowing how they advance and how we defend our positions. Верхняя Toretskaya group also was a bit active today, going towards the Cheretina, trying to hug Avdiivka from the north. Alright, let's go down south to Zaporozhye. There are some tactical movements near Vasilievka towards Orekhova, but there are no major movements, just some tactical crawling. On Kherson area, we are actually moving, and we keep getting closer to the city, and there are actually some pictures from our side where you can already see Kherson. What distance is it? It's about 15 kilometers, but from the hills you can already see it, so... On the map we have Posad Pokrovskaya and Mirnaya, but in our military reports we saw that there were Blagodatne, Pokrovskaya also hit today. That basically tells that if the enemy is hitting them, that means that we are there. So we're continuing to get closer to Kherson. And that's where we got to the hills and that famous picture that was in the media this week, or actually last 24 hours. And these counter-offensive operations are pretty much threatening to become a counter-offensive operative maneuver. Not that it's officially declared, but it just seems that what it'll grow to. Also, an achievement on the sea today. We sunk a Russian tugboat, Vladimir Bech. Got hit by 2 missiles. In the morning, 2 harpoons hit it, right? Yeah, it's a British missile. How far was it from the shore? I don't have that exact detail, but I don't want to be mistaken. But I would say it's pretty far. It should be a good distance. I'd still need to check the distance between Odessa and Zmini, Snake Island. I'm just curious, how far do harpoons shoot? Harpoons can reach as far as 280. This distance is definitely further than 90 miles. Also, among the published data today, CTV published the whole list of what did we sink on the Russian side. So it was a rocket cruiser, Moscow, assault, Serna, 2 boats, another assault boat, Caesar Kunikov, that was blown up in Berdyansk port. 8 patrol boats, Raptor type. 7 sunk near Snake Island, 1 near Mariupol, and tugboat Vasily Bech, not Vladimir Bech. Yep. So quite a number. And I read in one of the forum where people exchange some ideas, they noticed a peculiarity that Ukrainian Navy, without leaving their ports, are becoming one of the leading fleets by the tonnage of enemy ships sunk, a little more, and will be bigger than Brits during the Argentina conflict and Falkland Islands. And they're holding the majority only because they sunk the big tanker. So that's pretty amazing stats, and especially given the fact that our ships have never left the harbors. It's just Bayraktars and missiles. So near Kherson, we're getting Soldatskaya and Alexandrovka. That's literally 15 kilometers away. I'll tell you one very important thing to Mark. I did not want to say that too early to not jinx it, but it seems like we got the military luck again, military fortune. It sounds like a good name for this stream. Oh yeah, I think it is. It's very fluid and it moves back and forward. We actually had it since the first day of war. The paradox of this situation was that the enemy was pushing us very hard, but our military fortune was on our side. We hit them without missing and destroyed a lot of equipment on their side. Then it kind of disappeared and sunk away in the middle of April, and that's when Russia got the initiative. That's what happens. It's, military fortune is a very fickle lady, and she'd been here for a while, then she went to Russia, and now it seems like it's back with our troops. Because for 2 months, from mid-April to mid-May, we had not too much success. We couldn't get ammo on time, didn't hit right. We were holding and fighting regardless, but we're not too lucky. And that's where the actual strength comes from, when you fight professionally regardless of having or not that fortune thing on your side. And I refer to the fortune as a lady, but it seems like she's coming back on her pink shoes. And last week we started getting some really good news here and there. And just in the 24 hours, we destroyed a big supply depot, the one that's supplying Lysychansk, Popasna, Severodonetsk with ammo. We just leveled that. That warehouse is gone. A similar one was blown up in Donetsk, and it was blowing up for several hours. Another good successful hit on Skladovsky near New Kakhovka, and other successful strikes. One Su-25 went down, one helicopter we hit, and also a tugboat. Anything on the sea is a good success. So I'm just observing the stats, can say that, knock on wood, that drive is getting back to us. The one that we kind of forgot with that mundane war, when we sit in the trenches and they keep hitting us and every movement is very hard. And we had a period when, I'm not sure when our viewers noticed it, but there were 2 weeks when we barely could not use any artillery. We had no ammo and just were catching it from the Russian side. But yeah, it seems things are changing now to counter advances, and also, by the way, big changes in politics, very big days. The main thing, we got answer to the question that we wanted to know: will we be forced to do peace talks in Russia with Russia? So Europe came here in the face of French and Romanian officials, and the answer came as no, it won't. And I think do you think they understood, or what changed? Is it their temporary position? I think they understood that it's not worth trying to push us. They understood that our position is very sturdy on this one. So Romania knows that pretty well. They've been part of the Warsaw Pact, and they still remember that threat from ex-USSR. But Draghi, Scholz, and Macron, they voiced a few very important things. First, we'll continue supporting Ukraine, humanitarian, economically, and militarily. Second, of course, the war will conclude with peace talks, but Ukraine needs to be dictating the terms, and will not be pushing them to do that. And third, we need to give them European Union candidacy. My relation to that EU is a bit specific. I'm not going to cover that now. I think we're looking for a different historical path in the future. But the fact that they're supporting that, that's a big win for us. Because according to the Putin's ideas, I think the whole story should have gone a different way. They should have pushed Ukraine to Minsk III, but that did not work. So it did not work because of the hard position of Kiev and allies like London and Washington, and some East European allies, Poland most of all, or the understanding from these three that these conditions just would not fly, they're not discussable. You don't have anything to offer in return. You're basically asking for territorial, to give Russia Ukrainian territory, but you're not giving anything in return to Ukraine, a membership in NATO, a membership in the EU, or anything to reciprocate. I think it's a mix of everything. It's a mix of both sides. Our president, who made a statement that we're not going to go that route, we can discuss peace talks, but later, when we free our territory. And second, they understand that they have nothing to offer, or they're not ready to offer much in this scenario. Also, I did see Irpin and Bucha area. Yeah, you did take them there. We did. And that emotional experience matters. Personal stories and emotions matter. And many people can consider that statement to be a bit naive, but it appeared to me that Macron and Scholz were really shaken by what they've seen. You know, intellectual knowledge is one thing, but when you actually walk there and see the remnants of that tragedy, that gives an experience that can become that proverbial straw that breaks the camel back. And here it was a very important story, an important story of the scenario of this conflict. And after that, seeing that, to push for peace with Russia, to want to have more Bucha and Irpin in other parts. So the person who is ready to agree with the Russian negotiations with Russia then has to also confront his own personal experience from that territory where the atrocities were made. So it makes it harder to go for this option. Well, and Johnson came with presents. He came without announcing his visit, and he offered an interesting thing. He suggested to train 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers every 120 days. That's 2 brigades. What do you mean by train? To go full infantry training course. That is a very important story, because those who are drafted very often, we don't have time to train them properly because of the dynamics on the front. Oh, so they're getting like military training, military professions. Yes, exactly. Very important. We're raising the quality of the army, because it's the same problem as in Russian army. Those who are mobilized, those who are drafted, they don't have enough skill to fight good, to fight well. So now they'll be trained, because Brits are very savvy in training and in military strategy. And a good part is that a training, whenever you gather a lot of troops to train, that's always a risk for the Russian missile to fly in and break the party. So now they'll be doing it in, I'm not going to say where, but in this volume, we'll be able to heighten our ability to defend our territory. Will be growing drastically, while the share of poorly trained troops on the Russian side is increasing. So when that situation changes and our infantry generally becomes more professional than the offender, then with the military equipment addition that we're getting, that will play a big role on the front, because also with the equipment that we're getting and these 2 brigades preparation training course, that is super important. because 4 months of dedicated training, that's a full-scale infantry prep. Right now in Ukraine, we can maybe give 2 weeks, a month if you're lucky. Russian troops get basically a week training, 10-day stops, and then being thrown. So this step is a very important one. It actually means just as much as a lot of heavy equipment. And they're also giving us 20 howitzers, Paladin M110. So Britain came with a lot of goodies this time. That's actually 3 brigade complex. They said over 20 that they have purchased on the international market and repaired. I think they bought them from Belgium. So that's a good story. I am feeling that military fortune is back on our side again. All right, so in Ramstein, there was a meeting that was discussed a lot, especially General Milley's statement, who delineated the numbers of equipment given to Ukraine, which sounds rather significant. Yeah, it is, of course. In your view, how do these events relate? The visit of these 3 people, Scholz, Macron, and Mario Draghi from Italy, with Ramstein meeting, the 3rd meeting in Ramstein. Do you think it looked like an answer to what was going in Kiev? As an effort to break the plans for possible negotiations or forced negotiations with Russia? No, I don't think so. It's too smart of an intrigue. But France and Germany are present in Ramstein as well. But in Ramstein, it's Americans who are ruling the world. Here, they are trying to rule. Yeah, and then Johnson came over, so to not let that game be just a France, Germany, and Italy game. So it's just a complex affair, I think. They need to consider a lot of things here. Russia in the future position, the power situation with China. And if you look at the list of the weaponry that America gave us, it's impressive, especially if you look at the anti-tank equipment. But at the same time, you can understand that Macron said that they'll not give us tanks and storm aviation. So these 2 components are important for any offensive. Well, and that means they want us to talk to Russia and finish the war with negotiations. Well, Macron is not giving, but maybe Germany and Britain. Yeah, again, these are words. I think there'll be other phases, and I suspect that European plans will change, and eventually we'll start talking about liberating our territory militarily, at least to the line of 23rd of February. And I suspect there will be a change when Russian troops will turn around and start leaving the country, as if we would not even need to destroy them and obliterate the capacity. They'll just leave because there is no win for them. And you can see that we're moving near Kherson. They're defending there. Zaporozhye is not moving anywhere. They just don't have resources. So it's a matter of time. Again, let's not use my favorite phrase 2-3 weeks. Probably it'll take a bit more, but they'll stop. They'll stop on all the fronts. And then on the feeling, very important on the ideological point of view and from the mental point of view, mental understanding of everything going on, the uselessness and purposelessness of the whole situation. when one thing is when you're advancing and capturing something and so on. Another is when you're defending something. Like, I would not be questioning Russian bravery when they're defending Moscow, like in the Second World War, or more historic events that happened. But here you're defending something on the enemy territory that you captured. That is sad and very denigrating morally for the offender troops, for the invader troops. And they failed near Kiev, Sumy, and Chernigov, and I suspect it'll look the same in many other parts of this front too. And they already show that they don't have enough aviation support, and we managed to move towards Izium, move towards Kherson. So if you take a step back and look wider, what people do not see, that even on Popasna, Severodonetsk direction, Russian army is sort of advancing, but they're not solving the tasks set in front of them for 60 days. Capture, surrender, pincer movements, they cannot do any of that. And we achieve our goals because our goals are to tire the enemy and use the time and war attrition to incapacitate them. In Russian military, every seventh of invaders has died. In our, every 70th from those who took arms during this war. You feel the dynamics, it's two different things. If you take 200,000 Russian group, right? Basically, we have 710 would be dead, and they would have 250 and have 30 or 40 dead. So the dynamics is in our favor. Roughly 1 per 3.5. Yes. But what is important is how many people joined the fight and how many people died, because morally that gives a big pressure. Imagine that you're in a big detachment in Russia, out of which huge part died, or if you're in Ukrainian detachment and it's 1 out of 70 who's died. So it's a very different perspective, and this cannot be stored forever. At one point it will start working in our favor. So we need more advantages, cutting off the Zoom group and getting a few other items, so that what can bring the break to the war, the spiritual moral break to the enemy's army. So you can kind of compare it with in the Second World War with the Kursk battle, basically after which one could see that they tried to advance and they could not. After that, there were another 2 years of bloody fighting, but German army did not have any capacity to do any advancing maneuvers. And that's the story we think is coming, so let's see how it unfolds. Now we also got the news that HIMARS systems will be joining the fight by the 1st of July. How many? Americans said they'll be the first ones. 60 of our troops are already trained. That's roughly a division, little less, but we'll have several of those. Let's be delicate. This is not hurricanes, not Smerch. With the good use, every HIMARS is worth of 6 of those Russian machines. Because of the accuracy, distance, yes, types of missiles, it's a very precise, very serious weapon. So we'll see what will be happening on the front when that equipment joins. That's why I think it may follow a different scenario than the old Europe is suggesting. It likely will follow the scenario you and me discussed here earlier, the victory of Ukraine, weapons and armor. So let's discuss another thing. General Marchenko, he said that he's one of those generals who don't give interviews too much, but He did say that if Ukraine will get HIMARS, they probably will put a big target on the Crimea bridge. And probably he was pushed by the Russian side to go out and speak about it. How would you gauge this possibility? Under which circumstance would that bridge become a victim of this war? Mark, I'm skeptical here. You're skeptical in possibilities? Yes, exactly, because HIMARS cannot reach it. Just these ones, or the systems in general? In the current formation of our front lines, there's no way they can reach that bridge. And frankly, there are much fatter targets than Crimea bridges. Which one? Oh, the command posts, groups of troops. And another thing, it's pretty useless to shoot up a bridge, because they usually are built in a way to withstand direct hits. Yeah, but they're built by Russian builders. True, I understand, but still the elements of this bridge can be restored pretty quickly, within hours. So it's difficult to destroy it. You can shoot it out of symbolic aspirations, destroy some part of a railroad, but we do have better goals here, better targets here. It's, we can of course shoot and do something, but it is unlikely that we'll be wasting ammo that is somewhat limited to these systems on the bridge. It's much better to attack the troops that are going through the bridge, because you can rebuild the bridge. It's much harder to rebuild the army that is lacking troops. Alright, we have 400,000 people watching us. Please share links to this cast. Those people who subscribe during the cast, it does affect how much we are promoted. And also, everybody, as a suggestion, leave a like. Click that like button. We are a little bit below 200,000 likes, so please push that button a little more times so we can go over. And now let's talk about the dessert. Today he came to the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, International Economic Forum, as they said. He came with a lady. Takayev was also there. That was kind of a bad decision for Russia, because he said he's not acknowledging any DNR, LNR. He talked about the right of nations for self-determination, but at the end, circling back, that no DNR and LNR. So Putin was probably a bit upset by that guest. But he did speak about a lot of things that it's probably worthy of our discussion. That they do have reinforced Donetsk region, that there's no need to attack them. And about different means that can be used to solve this operation, and about goals that they have now, that now apparently he's not denazifying anything, he's collecting the historic Russia lands. So, a bit of an ugly speech, but, the usual. Did you follow his speech? I followed it in thesis format. It is a very interesting story. It is a potpourri of ideological and political views on the goals and tasks of this war that he started, together with very modest military goals, the goals that became much more modest from the beginning. Which ones? Well, he said we'll not be attacking Ukrainian fortifications or fortified regions. Well, his words are useless and don't cost much, especially he can lie as he breathes. Yeah, but he probably is referring to the same issue that he has to discuss, that he's probably talking to his generals. Why the heck are you still crawling near the same fortifications for 70 days? And they probably came back to him saying, well, listen, we do not want to turn the cities, Ukrainian cities, into Stalingrad, so we'll be maneuvering around them. And that's, I think, what he conveyed. He said that they'll be trying to encircle and do maneuvering. You know, some viewers have very short memory, but let's refresh. I remember the first week when they said, we'll iron the country with an iron asphalt roller, steamroll it, everything, and destroy everything. And now they're talking about, let's not attack the fortifications, let's walk around them, see if we can encircle anything. That looks much shabbier, and especially when they have to voice it in the Economic Forum international event that they planned, and it has to be voiced by a president, it shows that the general situation is pretty dire. Like, what would make you to go to a meeting of that caliber, go to the tribune and say, we in Chechnya, let's take Chechen war as an example, we, Russian army, are not going to attack Grozny up front. We'll be maneuvering, trying to save Chechen citizens. What stands behind it? A complete foobar on the front, right? And that's what, yeah, he's basically speaking because he needs to say something. And that's what he's explaining, that they're saving everybody, civilians, their troops, because there is no success. And that's basically a higher level resume for there is no success. It was announced with a bright speech that will change the situation. He inflated a bubble that just burst and there was nothing. I was watching him. He looks like a very old, sick man who's trying to make sense from the incongruity of his historical scenario madness with real things happening in life. And the next question is, what ideas does the Russian Federation offer to the world? What stands behind this war? What are we making the news from? And I did speak with some Western journalists and I asked them, how are you making news of it? And they were complaining that his statement was really so poor that they cannot even make proper, good-looking news from it. It was a very weak statement of a very weak politician who has nothing to offer, neither to the world nor to his own people. No bright slogans, no goals of war worthy of it, no logic. It's just some poor statement of very poor success. And that's the verdict for this campaign. What day is it? 114? Yeah, it's the verdict. He stated on day 114 that it was a useless action of putting tens of thousands of Russian soldiers and officers into the ground. And yet he would still come out and say that we are saving their lives. So it probably bothers him. There might be an issue there, because he keeps repeating that. We know that he doesn't give a crap about any of them, but he needs to pronounce that. Well, if they're planning to stay on these territories, and they might still have these plans, you need to get some loyalty from the populace. And how can you have them loyal if you're destroying their cities, killing their families? And how can you report about any loyalty that out of 250,000 people living in the district, they got only 25 who came to get Russian passports? So it's a standard situation, right? Yeah, as in the movie, it's a fiasco, man. I was asked what he would say, and I thought he might have said that, yeah, we'll join these territories, they're part of Russia. And he started saying something about New Russia, about territories from the Turkish wars. He kind of started walking that way. And he did make a statement that we will own these lands regardless of Kherson's population. desire to join Russia or not. I thought he would be going that way, but he did not. And I also have to say, they'll not be Russian territory much faster than he thinks. He keeps going the same way. A swing for a dollar, a hit for a cent. It's nothing. It's nothing burger, some mumbling and lackluster logic statement. You want something bright, something that changes the situation. People want that. They didn't get it. They want logic, perspective, goals worthy of that event. There was nothing. It was empty. This is the crowning jewel of 114 days of conflict. A very simple thing that the leader of Russia, who started this war and who just pushed Russia off the cliff, has nothing to declare on 114th day of war. Besides some weak attempts to explain things that look more and more like explaining why you fail. Alright, we've been streaming for about 41 minutes. Let's touch one more subject and leave a few more for tomorrow. Some people are asking about Belarus. Do you think anything changed on that side? Lukashenko is still maneuvering? They're doing some military training, but one has to understand what is he doing. He is in a very difficult position, and formally he's talking about fighting for Western Ukraine, that we're ready to do that, and informally he's doing anything possible to prevent Belarus army from joining that war. And symbolically, he actually is showing that I am rooting for Ukraine. Wink, wink. The thing is, not many people can decipher that. Well, that's why you and me are here, to help people decipher it. That's why I'm not too afraid of Belarus story. For example, we did have a meeting on the highest level, on the president's level. We checked our troops' readiness on the Belarus border. And I want to say we are ready. We are ready for that. And if they decide to go and send Belarus army to Ukraine, that probably will become one of the biggest military equipment supplies for us. Because it seems like they'll just deliver the equipment and probably join our army as well. And they're kind of afraid for that eventuality, so they don't want Belarus army to meet Ukrainian army at any part of the front yet. Perhaps, and it looks like they're scared that Belarus troops might start jumping ship and taking military equipment with them. I think that Belarus military is calm and sober. They'll find a way to solve this issue. And also, we have another announcement. We have a doctor, Julia Payevskaya, who was in prison, and she finally was exchanged and returned home. It was a long and difficult road for her, and will eventually bring every single one of ours who is in Russian POW camp. We've been 44 minutes live, 425,000 watching us. Last announcement, we sent another 2,000 euros to the family of the officer who died, we showed lately, to Julia Chvasheva, who had a project on, the officer had a project on Ukrainian TV. So we have to remind you that on OpenSea we have a lot of digital works of artists. Please send your works, participate in the auctions. We will be using these funds to support good causes and victims of war. Also, please send us advice whom to send money. We would love to help everybody, we don't, but if you have families with kids or children who could be supported, please let us know. Yeah, so we'll try to choose orphans and kids who might have lost the limbs. So we'll try to continue this work. It's a slow process, but it depends upon how soon the auctions go successfully, and it's, a certain cycle. All right, 45 minutes live. See you tomorrow. Subscribe to our both channels. Same time, Saturday, 18th of June. We'll see you. Goodbye. See you tomorrow.
Марк, Костя, уважаемый зритель, до встречи, до завтра.